Hello, and welcome to the Inside the Orange podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, episode 10. It's absolutely unbelievable. And we're coming to the end of another year with 2022 very, very nearly upon us. Firstly, from last week, I just want to say a massive thank you to Ionica for coming and having a great chat about the acting industry and for the feedback and the comments we've had about the episode. So thank you so much for that. On today's episode, I've got a guest called Ficks. Now, when I first met Carl and I had a chat with him about what he does, he said he was a lawyer turned wellness coach. And I said, how do those two jobs even kind of work together? And he gave me such an education in it that actually, when you look at it, it's more about why we do things than what we do in this world. So let's get into that with Carl. But before we do start the interview, as always, here's how you can get in touch with the podcast. To get in touch with the podcast, you can find us at insidetheorange.co.uk. You can email us at insidethisorange@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at OrangeWhats, Orange WHATS. On Instagram, Inside the Orange. On the Inside the Orange podcast Facebook page, or you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Richard Stevens, motivational speaker and creator of the Inside the Orange. All these links will be available in the description and show notes. So my guest today is someone that fills my LinkedIn profile with positivity, and it's just such a wonderful thing to see. We've made a friendship very quickly over the short time that we've met each other, and we kind of share each other's work. And I'm delighted that he's coming to do the podcast today. So Ficks, welcome to the Inside the Orange podcast. How's your day been so far?
So far, so good, Richard. And thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege. I can't wait to have a chat with you. But my day's been good. It's better now that I'm on with you.
Very kind for you to say. So obviously I know your work, but our listeners might not. So let's have a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I live in the States, and for plus or minus 33 years, I practiced law. I was in the private practice of law with two different law firms. And in May of this year, 2021, I decided to pivot, and I founded a company named Nosurrender. And it focuses on health and wellness for busy folks, busy professionals, busy lawyers who may have at one time been in the fitness game, but because the busyness of life has interfered, they're no longer in the fitness game. And I just want to share some things that have worked for me in my profession that allowed me, frankly, to be resourceful and resilient throughout my career, which was fairly high stress and fairly pressure packed. So that's what I'm doing. And so far, so good. I've met some incredible folks like you, and I'm just trying to spread the word that it's easier than you think to kind of get back in the game and get your fitness back.
That's good. So there's some things that we need to talk about. So first and foremost, we started this meeting offline today, and the first thing I said is I've had a terrible last hour. Everything's gone wrong. You know, I kind of pulled out to you, and you said there's some interesting things that can come from that. So what can you kind of help me? How can you help me today? You know how stressed I was when I pressed meet didn't open today and everything had gone wrong. How do I keep myself getting in that position?
Well, I think, life throws us curveballs at all times, whether it's in our family life or whether it's in our profession. and it's really how you respond to it. So I draw great analogies between fitness and the curveballs of life. You can train for a race. You can train in perfect weather, and then you wake up that morning and it's sleeting or it's snowing or it's blazing hot. And how do you deal with that? Well, you don't say to yourself, you know what, because of the weather, I'm not going to do this. The weather, you have to deal with it. So you make the best of it. So you just kind of tweak it and adjust on the fly. I've had so many instances of that. I'll share an anecdote. I went out for a long ride, 50-mile ride once. It was 25 miles out, 25 back. And once I made the turn, my left pedal fell off my bike. It broke. So we have equipment on our bikes to fix flats, but not to fix pedals. So I had some choices. I could call my house and perhaps get a ride. I could call Uber, or I could ride home with one pedal. So I thought, I'm going to choose door number 3 and let's see how this goes. And I pedaled home with one pedal, and it was strenuous, but it did the job. So that was the curveball that came at me that particular ride, and I made the most of it. So we all have days like that. So I just try to make the most of it and learn something from it.
And I think, and I mean, we're going to get onto some of your work later on, the Friday Fix and things like that have been so kind of inspirational for myself. We need to kind of start from, you said you're in law. Okay. So how do you get from being in law, which is quite a stiff job, if you don't mind me saying, it's quite a serious job, and going to something that is wellness and fitness? I mean, you said that fitness has always been part of your life, but how do they correlate? How does that even begin to happen?
Sure. I have been involved in sporting events, sporting activities my whole life. As a kid, and then in high school, and then in college. I have a very competitive streak in me. So what I did, that kind of guided me on my choice of profession. I found the law to be very competitive. So I started on the courtroom side of the ledger, not on the real paperwork side. And I found the courtroom to be competition. It was, it most clearly mimicked what I was doing on the side for my fitness and wellness. But then throughout my career, lawyers can put in very, very long days. Other professionals put in very, very long days. And I built a fitness component in to allow me to get through those days and get through those weeks and deal with what is coming, or what was coming at me, very fast. The law, we are service providers. And in order to be in service to others, like our clients and our colleagues and our families, we need to actually show up. So if we are offline for whatever reason, health related or otherwise, then we cannot necessarily be in service to others. So I was mindful of that. And I built in this fitness component in my daily and weekly schedule. And it just allowed me to get through some very busy days. I would routinely work out in the morning because, as we know, you just said it, days can go sideways. So I would work out first thing in the morning, and then I owned it. That was my workout, and nobody or nothing could take it from me. And then I would go into work feeling pretty refreshed that I had done my workout and I was ready for whatever came at me. So I'm very passionate about it. It's allowed me it did allow me to have a fairly successful career, I think. And then I just thought, you know what, if I could get this message out that some practices or methods are really not sustainable and wouldn't allow you to work 65 hours a week that sometimes the law and other professions demand. So to me, it seemed to be a natural pivot.
Yeah, and again, we spoke about this before, and it feels unusual, but like you say, once you understand kind of your own being and own your day, I think that's one of your biggest things, is own your day, own your weekend, and everything like that you do talk about. Once you kind of understand yourself, you're halfway there, aren't you? And once you can own that run, that exercise, that mental well-being, you're halfway there for the rest of your day. Were there any days though that you were doing your job in law and you felt like your pedals had come off? And was it easy to kind of react to that, or is that something that you had to learn and that's how it's become easier for you over time?
Great question. Yeah, there were days where if you had to script the day, something came up that never in your wildest dreams would have come up. But I'll share a lesson that I learned in law school. We had a trial advocacy professor, my third year of law school, which was 1987 to 88. So I'm telling you something from 34 years ago, and I distinctly remember it. He came in with a big stuffed toad, like you'd win at a country fair, and he put it on the lectern. And for weeks, law students who like to talk would ask him, "Professor, what's that toad?" And he said, "We'll get there, we'll get there." Well, he finally got there. And what he said was, "This toad is your star witness. You think your witness is a prince, but when you get into court, your witness turns into a toad. And you'll make your street cred on how you deal with that toad." And I often think of him. He was a prosecutor in the District of Columbia, a federal prosecutor. And throughout my career, I would think of him that this is my toad moment. I have worked with a witness. I've prepared him or her. She is going to be a great witness. And we get into court and we've got a toad. So how do you deal with it? So you learn that as things go, as time marches on. And I get toads on my rides or my runs. The pedal was a toad. So yeah, it happens. And you realize, okay, we can get through this, and let's just think it through, and all is not lost.
That's a really important message. And one of the things that I do like about your work is you say you're on a mission to help people reclaim their wellness.
Right.
How do people know they've lost that? Is that doing these 90-hour days and not actually looking after number one? Explain how that works and what it means to you.
I think it could manifest itself in any number of ways. It could impact your relationships with others. It can impact clearly your health, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual well-being. You could be short with others, or you could sit around and kind of pine about, geez, I remember 10 years ago, I was able to run 5 miles. I really wish I could do that again. Those are all obviously symptomatic of perhaps having lost touch with it. And sometimes you just have to reassess. I will tell you that I was running a lot, and it became for a time like a loveless marriage. I had this jealous mistress of running, and I lost the joy. So I took a step back and I picked up this book by Christopher McDougall titled Born to Run. And I read it, and it revived me. And basically, McDougall says we as humans are born to run. And I realized that when I read it, that I wasn't running for the joy of running. I was running for the watch. I was running to enter something in my logbook, not for just the pure joy of breaking a sweat or spending 20 minutes doing something. So for a time, I lost the watch, and I recaptured the joy or the love of running, because we are, as McDougall says in his book, born to run. So I think, there's the physical and then the emotional side. I have friends that lament that they couldn't keep up with their younger children because they just didn't feel good. So those are all things that happen. And, I look at Mick Jagger. I'm a huge Rolling Stone fan. I think Mick Jagger was born in 1943. They're now back on tour in the States. And I read the review they opened the other night. And one of the papers in the States said, Mick Jagger, he's 78 years old. And he was up there preening and dancing as only Mick can do. He looked like a 40-year-old. So I'm hopeful I can do what Mick does, at physically. Certainly I can't sing, but Jagger's a huge inspiration. He works out. That doesn't happen overnight. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, and it's perfect. I said on one of my videos on Instagram or LinkedIn recently that we're only on this planet for a short space of time, and that's quite, if we're talking about the Stones, we've just lost Charlie Watts, who's the Stones drummer, and that's a terrible thing, obviously, but that could be the kind of thing that the Stones said, well, we're just going to stop now. We're going to stop. But that's not in their way, is it? And that's not in Mick's way at all. And that's not how, you could stop. But then if you stop, does that finish everything? You've got to have that kind of, that passion to go on, haven't you?
Yeah, without a doubt, because again, it all comes back to the being in service. It's part of my DNA, and the pithy example is when you take a flight, the flight attendant says, if the oxygen mask drops down and you're traveling with a small child, put your mask on first before assisting the small child. If you don't put your mask on first, you're horizontal on the aisle, you can't help that small child. If you listen to the flight attendant, put your mask on first, you can then assist. So fitness to me is like the oxygen mask. It allows me to be in service, again, to others.
And I think you made a really good point about not going by the watch. I think and targets. I think sometimes, although we do need them in life, we need to know where we are with things. We need to kind of understand it. We shouldn't live ourselves to a target, should we? We shouldn't have to live every day as if, we've got to do it in this amount of time. I think, we have got to be aware of, like you say, the goodness. If you focus on the target, you're missing 99% of the rest of the picture. Is that fair to say?
100%. If you get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning in the winter to take a run or a walk, it's because you want to do that. So you've got to ask the why. Why am I doing this? And if you're doing it because it makes you feel better, then that will allow you to get up at 5 in the morning to take that walk in the horizontal drizzle that are fairly miserable conditions. If you're doing that to impress somebody else, you may likely, in all likelihood, not get up and out of bed. So it's really an internal thing. And I provide, I teach some continuing legal education courses for lawyers in the States. And one of my slides is to simply compete against yourself. I'm a big believer in that. You've got to compete against yourself. Forget about everybody else. If you run a race, it's because you want to run the race. I don't pick people out in my bike races or road races and say, I'm gonna run that guy down. I might look at a telephone pole 200 meters away and say, okay, I need to get to that pole in whatever time, or just get me to the next pole. It's all, I just preach competing against yourself. I've found that, frankly, to be far more rewarding to do that.
No, I 100% agree. I want to kind of, so running was important to you. At the moment, it's more cycling. We talked a bit before why you've made that transition. If you want to talk about that, that's absolutely fine. You're currently doing something 1,400 miles. And I've got to say it on the podcast, you've actually done something for us on that, haven't you? Are you all right to talk about that?
Sure. So last year, 2020, I rode 3,600 miles. So what's that? 5,500 kilometers. So when 2021 came around, I thought, you know what, let's go for 5,000 miles. So 8,500 kilometers. So the first 8 months of the year, I cycled 3,600. So I met my goal from 2020. And there are 4 months left. This is a month ago. There are 4 months left there are 4 months in 2021. And I thought this would be far more meaningful to me if I could dedicate these miles to others. I had done that intermittently throughout my running and riding career. I'll give you, for instance, when my nephew, who's now 24, when he turned 16 years old, he was a runner. And I said, Edward, for your birthday, I'm going to go on a 16-mile run with you. We're going to run 1 mile for every year you've been alive. To me, that was seemingly a more meaningful gift. And to this day, he still talks about it. It was a memory. We made a memory together. And I would often ride. My wife's uncle, for instance, last August turned 100 years old. He died shortly thereafter. I rode 100 miles in his memory. So I got to thinking, this would be great if I could have others join my journey and it would make things more meaningful. So I just posted on LinkedIn, I will ride for you. And I said, if you've had a birthday, tell me. If you've had a wedding anniversary, tell me. If you've been sober for 10 years, tell me. I'll ride 10 miles. Anything, I'll ride for you. And the feedback, Rich, has been phenomenal. I've done 11 rides so far. There are 7 more rides in the queue. You asked me to ride 29.9 miles and for the UK format of the calendar, 29 September. So I did that. And it's been very, very meaningful to me. So I've had people join my journey, and it's making that 5,000 mile goal a lot more fun. Because riding can be solitary. I do ride with some friends, but many of my rides are alone. But they're not really alone when I'm riding for somebody or something. So that's why I'm doing it.
And it's brilliant. And as I say, yeah, so the date that we're recording this, so as of recording, this is now the 29th of September. So how the UK writes the calendar is 29/9. So I said, I could have been very horrible and put the 2-1 at the end, but I thought, that's asking a lot of you to do 29,000 miles. I think I've overshot your target there.
Yeah.
But no, as I say, and much as, the kind of health benefits is for you and that is, but I think that's the very important thing about sometimes when we look at this as when we're competitively trying to beat someone compared to if you're taking other people with you on the journey. So because you're offering to do this for other people, they are coming with you, which is different from what we were talking about a minute ago of going, I want to beat this person. It's the kind of collaboration. Is that okay to say?
Very much so. And I will tell you this, it's there have been some ancillary benefits too. I'll give you an example. Over the weekend, I rode 47 miles for a friend. He asked me to do, it's a combination. He said, ride 13 miles for the 13 US service members that were killed in Kabul. And then we lost a college friend 34 years ago in a military accident. So those two are 47 miles. He said, when you do that, text me and I will make a donation to Wounded Warriors. So Sunday morning, 3 days ago, I rode 47 miles. I texted my friend Mike. I said, Mike, 47 miles, done. He responded, great, thank you so much. I'm now making a donation to Wounded Warriors. So I had a great ride. I did this for Mike. I did this for our service members that were killed and in memory of our college friend who died 34 years ago. And the Wounded Warriors got a donation. So there's nothing but frankly good that's coming out of this. I rode for another friend in honor of her daughter. She could not be with her daughter on her birthday, on her 25th birthday. So I rode 25 for this friend's daughter. Her email back, Rich, said, my heart is full and grateful. You can't buy that. And that's not what I'm looking for. I don't want the adulation or the kudos. I want to be in service and do things for others. So that's why I'm doing it. And I've had some fun rides, and I've got some other rides in the queue that are going to be equally fun and meaningful.
And if anyone's listening today and hears this, and this should be going out in time. So if people do get in touch and say, can you do it? This guy will do it for you. He will. If you're helping him, you're helping yourself and other people, really, aren't you?
Right.
So let's move on. Something that is really kind of inspirational to me on a Friday, every Friday, something comes into my little LinkedIn message box to say something's happened, and it's something called the Friday Fix. Tell us about the Friday Fix. Where did it come from? We've got some lovely stories. There's some lovely bits and pieces that I'll talk to you about that I've seen on there. Where did this come from?
Sure. So I decided my last name Ficks, F-I-C-K-S, is obviously not F-I-X, but I started thinking about Ficks and kind of riffing on my last name. And when I was a kid, I'd go to church with my parents. And there were some Sundays where the preacher or the priest would, for 20 minutes, shake his finger and lecture us, and it became white noise. There were other priests that were just phenomenal, and they would speak for 3 minutes, and they would have such an impact on the following week. And when I would go to church, I would want just one little nugget of wisdom or inspiration that I could lean on in the following week. So I started writing on LinkedIn in early 2020, long articles, and I did 15 or 18 of those, and I really enjoyed doing it. But I thought, you know what, let's break it down into a little more digestible pieces. And I thought, well, it would be fun. Let's play on my name and do it on a Friday, the Friday Fix. So what it is really, I think I just posted, it's season 1. I'm calling it seasons, episode 38. It's just a little nugget of hopefully of wisdom or inspiration that the reader can take away and perhaps lean on. And I try to draw on things that have happened to me in the last 58 years where lessons were learned. And so I'm trying to illustrate my point via a story from my life. And the reception's been great. And I'm the giver of this, and I think I'm getting more out of giving than the recipient. But the feedback's been phenomenal. I'm having a great time doing it. So really the genesis is I just want to give one little nugget of wisdom or inspiration. And the other thing too is I'm kind of laying some things out there because we do live, as we know, in it can be a fake world. A lot of social media platforms are fake. You know, look at me. I'm standing in front of a Lamborghini. I might have rented this Lamborghini, but look at me. That's not the way I roll. So there's some authenticity there. You know, by the way, this didn't work out for me. You know, I shared a piece where I went off the rails in college, and as a result, could not go abroad in 1983 and 84. And my buddies that did go abroad went to the Olympics in Sarajevo, the 1984 Winter Olympics. I squandered that opportunity. And then we know what happened to Sarajevo. Civil war just ruined that city and the beautiful architecture. So that was kind of my lesson. It's, hey, I was living in the moment and that was foolish. And I squandered this opportunity to go abroad. And therefore I didn't see the Winter Olympics. My friends did, they still talk about it. So I laid it out there that, yeah, I went off the rails in college a little bit. I mean, I got it back together, but that's authentic. And that's really what it's all about.
And if you don't mind me saying, they are interspersed. We've already touched on the Rolling Stones, but there is interspersed. Now, I'm a huge Queen fan. You've done one recently, Under Pressure, which was quite an interesting read. Not maybe for the weak stomach to some people, if you don't mind me saying.
True.
What's this? What's the link with the bands? Is it because does it connect people when people obviously know these bands are huge?
I just think life is very rhythmic. And I just love music. I love all genres of music. And I just find a lot of meaning in various lyrics. So I'll lift a lyric and just employ it in my writing. One of the first pieces I did was the song White Rabbit from the 60s. You know, Grace Slick sings, when logic and proportion have fallen sloppy dead. And I was thinking the pandemic, things, you know, sometimes have become illogical and out of proportion. I mean, we look at what's going on in Australia. Is that a proportionate response? Some would say yes, others would say no. So I just thought of that song, and it seems like pandemic has the pandemic has altered logic and proportion. So that's just one line out of a song that illustrates some things we're going through. So I think life is rhythmic, and there's a lot of meaning in various songs. So I just kind of highlight them and have fun with it.
And you end them very much the same about owning the weekend, owning your life, really, in that sense. How much of it are you prepared to share? Because it is obviously it's about yourself, isn't it? It's your experiences. Is there a limit what you share, or do you think that every lesson that you've learned in, as you said, 58 years, there's something you could take from every part, or at least?
I mean, there are a couple things that have experiences in my life that I may not go to, but we'll see. I mean, again, I'm not a rear view mirror guy. I have very few regrets, but so I just want to share what has happened again on the authenticity. But you talked about the ending. My ending is own the day, own the weekend. And it's ownership. And I will tell you that as a lawyer in the States, when you sign a document that goes into court, you are certifying that document is being filed in good faith. So you, as the signer, you own it. In corporate America, and I spent a few years outside of the legal business, there was this ownership issue that, you know, people are afraid to step up and to own it. You know, an example, I changed something up at this, I worked at a hospital, and I changed something up, And I said to my team, I said, listen, if this succeeds, it's on all of us. We all share in it. If it fails, it's on me. And once I said to the team that I would take the heat for a failure, I could see them visibly relax, saying, oh, well, you could read their body language like, well, Ficks is going to take ownership. So yeah, we're in. So I just am a big believer in own what you do. There's a lot of anonymity on social media. You know, we all know about the keyboard warriors, and you can drag people down with your words and use some pseudonym, but why are you going to do that? What's the point of that? You want to put something out on social media, own it, stand up, use your name. This is my position. And I think people will respect that. So it's kind of a double entendre. It's, you know, again, I said I worked out in the morning and then I owned that workout. Nobody could take it, but it's owning that workout, but it's also owning what you say and what you do.
And again, you've used a word quite a few times there, authenticity. Something I know is in your values of what you do. Honesty and empathy as well, kind of are quite strong in your values. When we do this though, are we, so I was on a clubhouse room a little while ago, and they said about asking about your legacy, and I said that I wanted my legacy to be that if someone meets me, I'm the same guy that does the podcast, I'm the same guy that does the Instagram. Is that your legacy? Is it that if someone met you tomorrow, this is who they get Carl Ficks from the Friday Fix or whatever, you're the wellness coach and everything, you get the same person? Is that something that's important to you?
Very much so. Again, there's a Jimmy Buffett song with a line that says, I am who the hell I am. So, you know, it's me, warts and all. And, you know, once at one of my old law firms, I was accused of being strident. It's like, okay, if you want to call me strident, you know, I believe in what I believe in. You know, I stood up for a friend and a colleague at the law firm, and we had a good laugh about it. He said to me, my wife and I were not having any other children, but if we had a child, you'd be the godfather. So I got a good chuckle out of that. I said, I'm going to be the godfather to your hypothetical child. He said, yes, because you stood up for me. So we still laugh about that. But what was going on there was not right. So I said, hey, this is not right, and we need to fix it. So yeah, anybody who meets me on the street, this is who I am.
And that brings us around nicely. This is a life based in service, and something that I probably was a little bit harsh on the law. Your law career. It is a service. You put that quite bluntly at the beginning. You said, you know, law is still a service, and I think that's something that gets missed sometimes because there is a lot of conflict in it. We don't see that level, but like you said, everything that you do comes back to that level of serving others.
That's correct. And I did, in all candor, I did represent a number of corporations in my legal career, but I also represented some friends. I had a friend who had a problem on the sale of his house, and I helped him out. And after, he wrote a card and he said, Carl, thank you for believing in me. That one line was very meaningful. I still remember it. I will always remember it because I did believe in him. And I said, we're going to fix this. You know, what happened was not right, and we are going to fix this. So I made an impact in his life, which was meaningful to him, but his card back to me was far more meaningful. Thank you for believing in me. That was, those were very powerful words.
And again, back to everything that's kind of underlined this interview, you said about the law at the beginning, there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of that in there. You talk about running, you talk about cycling. Are you competitive? Are you someone that has got a competitive streak, or do you just do everything with just, I don't care how it ends up, I'm just doing this for me?
Well, I am competitive. So I actually was asked the question, how does your competitive streak, I was once asked this recently, how does your competitive streak match up with being in service to others or being a coach to others? And I satisfy that competitive streak in different ways. My own workouts. Sunday morning, I rode 47 miles. I wasn't on the clock. I just rode them. But when I finished, I thought, oh, this is great. This is going to be a great day. But I do it in other ways. Like I'll go to the market and I'll think, okay, I'm going to make a game out of this. I think I think they're charging too much, so I'm going to try to get the best deal on my groceries. So that's a little game. So I play these games to satisfy my competitive streak. And to an extent, this 4 for 1,400, yeah, that's a goal, and let's be competitive. And I'm creating my own competition. Like, can I sign up more? Can more people jump on the bandwagon or get in a queue? And can I ride for more people? I said once, if I can reach one person, like a week from this Friday, I'm doing a continuing legal education seminar for the State of Wyoming Bar Association. It's going to be virtual because Wyoming's in the Western United States. If I can reach one person during that CLE, then I will feel as if I did my job there. But if I can reach one, well, why can't I reach 5? Or why can't I reach 10? So it's the one to many. That's a competition, but that's all on me, and just to get my message out.
And how important then is it a care for law, or is it a care for the people in law, in the profession of law, that drives this? Or is it both? Is it that you love the law and you love the people that do that job, and you want them to be the best versions of themselves and do the job the best way? Is that, do you know where I'm going?
I think it's the latter. And again, this translates really to any profession. I just think some things that I've done over my career allowed me to, again, be more resourceful and resilient. So I don't want to see anybody die off the vine or struggle, whatever profession it is, whether you sell real estate, whether you're an airline pilot. It's, you know what, if you live a certain lifestyle that's not sustainable, you are going to flame out, and that impacts everybody. You want to try to lift up people instead of tearing them down. We chatted before we started recording. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of negativity. It seems every day we wake up, the world's on fire somewhere. And the media does their level best, I think, to bring people down. And I'm trying to push out my own message that there are an incredible number of good people out there doing incredible things. So why don't we hear more about them and that?
And absolutely. we did talk at the beginning. I mean, as I said, currently at time of recording, there's an issue with fuel in the UK, and I said it seems to have started from the media saying there's a fuel shortage, but there isn't a fuel shortage, but there is a fuel shortage, which makes people create a fuel shortage. And it's that kind of, we want to be doing the other thing. We want to be telling people that there is fuel in the world, there is enough fuel in the world, because it might help someone that is struggling the other way with that, isn't it? Who is getting into such a point that they can't, all they can think about is a fuel shortage at the moment. Well, there's plenty more. There's blue skies outside. Right. This is what you should be enjoying.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say too, Rich, is that it's not terribly. You don't have to. If you want to climb a mountain, you might not want to start with Mount Everest. You might want to start a little smaller. So Starbucks is everywhere, as we know, and unless you have the app, you're standing in line at Starbucks. And I'm not a Starbucks fan, but I'll use it as an example. Sometimes the lines are long. So people will make the choice to stand in a Starbucks line and wait 20 minutes for their coffee. There are abundant workouts that you can do in 20 minutes. You can go to a local track, which is a 400-meter track, run 400 meters, walk 400 meters, repeat. When you hit 20 minutes, you're done. That 20 minutes is far better than standing in line at Starbucks waiting for your coffee. There are a number of easy workouts where you don't need equipment. I mean, Peloton is all the rage, as we know. Pelotons are pricey. Not everybody can afford it. You don't need a pricey piece of equipment. You need a high school track. And if you can't get a track, you can walk off 400 meters in your neighborhood, run that, walk back, run it again, walk back, 20 minutes, beautiful workout, no equipment. And
how you feel afterwards.
And how you feel afterwards will positively impact all your interactions, again, with your families, your family, your friends, your colleagues, everybody. And that has a domino effect.
Absolutely. So for people, because you are so inspirational. I couldn't even get the words out there. You are so inspirational. I love seeing what you do. How can people find you if they want to know more about what you do?
It's my name. It's carlficks.com, CARLFICKS.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Just punch my name in. I'd love to connect with you. And that's where a lot of my stuff is, on LinkedIn, and my website that I just gave you.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So a couple of questions I've got, and I like to finish on them, is if you had the opportunity to talk to your younger self, or maybe you've told me before you've got younger daughters, something you want your daughters to hear, what would you want to tell them? And what does the future hold for you? And is fitness the key? So two-part question there for you.
Sure. So a younger Carl, I'd say, don't goof off in college so you can go to Sarajevo. No, but I would say to a younger Carl, slow down and enjoy each moment. And I'll illustrate that. In the late 90s, my wife and I went to Paris with a friend from law school, his wife and daughter. And we ripped through Paris, 2 nights, 3 days. And we had a checklist, Notre Dame, check. Eiffel Tower, check. The Louvre, check, right? And we then took the train from Paris to Milan, and we were on the train, and I thought, yeah, Paris was nice, but I'll be back someday. Well, that was 1997. I haven't been back. And upon reflection, I should have slowed it down a little and enjoyed all that Paris had to offer. So I would just slow it down. And in fact, in my program, one of the pieces is to savor, reflect, and reassess. Savor, like just savor what you're doing. Celebrate a small win. If you go out, I'm watching your videos, you go out for a 30-minute walk, savor that. That's a big deal. So I'd tell a younger Carl, slow it down and don't rip through the checklist. And then as far as what the future looks like, the common denominator will always, in my mind, so long as I'm able, there's going to be a fitness component, because again, I want to be like Mick Jagger, and when I'm 78, I want to be doing what Mick's doing, not in front of 70,000 people, but just keeping up. If I could, when I'm 75 years old, ride 75 miles for my birthday and all my friends' birthdays, it would delight me. So, and you mentioned my daughters, and really, I want to lead by both word and deed. And I want to show my daughters that I'm not going to give up, and, to keep on going and stay in motion. And if I could just share one more thing, speaking of music, the name of my company, No Surrender, at first blush, it looks like, well, Ficks doesn't give up. And I like to think that, but really No Surrender is from the Bruce Springsteen song that was on Born in the USA. When I was in law school, my first 2 years, I had no car. I took the city bus in Washington, D.C. Born in the USA, had just come out. So I had a Walkman. I think those are now in time capsules. But I listened to Born in the USA on my Walkman, and No Surrender looped in my head. And there were times when I wanted to quit law school, but I had the boss singing in my ears, No Surrender. So when I decided in earlier 2021 to make this pivot, I wanted to pay homage to that song that in many ways got me through law school. So that's where the No Surrender comes from.
Awesome. And if I can just paraphrase the boss, are you Born to Run? That's another Bruce Springsteen song. Surely that's an influence somewhere.
Oh yeah. But I do like the book, as I mentioned, Christopher McDougall, the Born to Run book, which is phenomenal if your audience hasn't read it. And I've had some running friends. One of them texted me recently, I'm not feeling inspired. And I responded, read Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. You will be inspired. So.
Awesome. So, I'm looking forward to you being the Mick Jagger of LinkedIn with your Friday Fix to be going on. We might have to start me up and things like that. I'm trying to think of these stone songs that are going now, but it's just been so inspirational to see what you do, and I'm so happy to have met you. Only virtually. Again, we've only done this ever over this, but I just want to say a massive thank you. Is there anything else you want to say before we end the episode today that could help someone?
I want to thank you for having me on as a guest. I also want to thank you for your work. Getting connected with you has just added tremendous happiness to my life. And I've loved getting to know you and getting to see the work that you do. I was listening to a couple of your podcasts. You talked about on a recent podcast, the walk you did for autism. I know that has touched you personally. That's an incredible thing. Thought there's a coach, podcaster, author by the name of Chris Dorris. He's a mental toughness coach. And Chris has this thing called all inness. It's the committed state of being all in. And he's got various components. And one of them is to dedicate the experience to somebody. And I was thinking of that when you talked about you had raised over 800 pounds at that point, I believe, for the autism walk. And I thought, okay, Rich is all in on this autism cause, and because he's dedicating it to the community, the autism community. So kudos to you. It's very important. And it's a neat thing to see.
And I think we're just going to stay in touch. And if there's any other time that you want to come on the podcast and we'll talk about it, then please feel free to come back. But for today, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And likewise.
So a huge thank you to Carl Ficks. Please check him out. The links will be in the description and show notes of how you can find his work. And it is really inspirational. And make sure you check out No Surrender and just all that he does. On next week's show, I'll be joined by former Special Olympian Ashton Smith. Now, Ashton has written a book about swimming upstream. Now she's a Special Olympian swimmer and other events as well. And her time with the Special Olympics was something that has had to teach her a lot of resilience, and ultimately that hope lives. It's a very impactful story, and I'm so looking forward to Ashton coming on the podcast and telling you about it. So until next week, goodbye and take care. And as always, stay tuned to find out how you can get in contact with the podcast. To get in touch with the podcast, you can find us at insidetheorange.co.uk. You can email us at insidethisorange@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at OrangeWhats, Orange WHATS. On Instagram, Inside the Orange. On the Inside the Orange podcast Facebook page, or you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Richard Stevens, motivational speaker and creator of the Inside the Orange. All these links will be available in the description and show notes.